You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody. Hey guys, welcome back to the show, the Camino edition. It's nearly a week into my Camino and I've booked myself into a hotel to try to record this in the knowledge that the audio last week was not that good. Hopefully the quiet of the hotel will help, though you may hear my stomach rumbling from time to time because, believe it or not, I'm actually quite hungry. And so I was recording something else earlier, so I know there's a rumble there. See if you can spot it. But we'll see how it works out. This week, for this Monday episode, I'm going to be reporting on 4 days, days number 2 and 3, followed by days number 4, then 5. And in between, we're going to hear from Beth and Andrew on the Appalachian Trail. And then on Thursday, we're going to hear 3 days, and then we're also going to hear from Dave. And that's how it's going to move forward from there. So let's get to it and go back to last Wednesday and Thursday for days number 2 and number 3. Day 2, Roncesvalles, which is 15.3 miles, to Zubiri, which is 28.6 miles, a total of 13.3 miles. At the huge albergue in Roncesvalles, we were sent to our respective breakfasts, had a pretty basic continental breakfast and headed out. And I knew from last time that I was likely going to be stopping at cafes along the way, so I wasn't that concerned about it. And that actually is what happened. I stopped very early on, in fact, within the first 50 yards, for a picture by the road sign which said that Santiago de Compostela was 790 kilometres away. That works out to just over 490 miles. You know, seeing it in those terms is a long way, and it feels like it's a long way as well. And I know that I'm going to enjoy it, but I know that it's still quite a mission to do. And even though I've always said it's more of a walk than a hike, apart from that first day, you're still going to walk the miles. And there's 790 kilometres or 490 miles rather, are a lot of miles to walk. And this was a great start because it started out with a nice little quarter mile, nice flat path through the trees, and eventually we came to our first cafe after about 1.25 miles in Oretsburget. I stopped now, if I was with Emma, we would have stopped for a coffee and a beer, but I didn't have a beer. We stopped for a coffee, or I stopped for a coffee, and a tortilla, which is kind of an eggy sort of, it's like a big omelette actually, and it's a thing I've had quite a lot of on this trip already, but it was a tortilla sandwich. And that village is a really narrow village with hardly any sidewalk, although the sidewalk such as it is, next to it is a gully and it's all covered up. You can see the water through it, flowing through the village. So the village never gets flooded. It's pretty neat the way it's set up actually. But we were soon out in the countryside and well away from the main road. Often the Camino tends to go via the main roads or near the main roads, but this one sent us right out into the country. And unlike the Appalachian Trail, the path is normally, where in the Appalachian Trail, the path is actually only about a foot and a half wide, and there's literally only one person can walk along it at a time. In this one, the path is normally wide enough for 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 people to walk side by side. And that's, to me, emblematic of the community aspect of this trail. People are walking along 4 and 5 abreast, talking to each other and generally chatting it up. Some of the walk this morning took us through small woods areas, I suppose you call them, with compacted dirt underfoot. This made for pretty easy walking until somebody, I don't know why, must have decided to lay down a pavement through the woods. It's kind of a bizarre thing, really, and I wouldn't have liked to have walked down some of the slopes with that pavement, especially if it had been raining, because it could have been quite slippy. My first actual beer of the trip was at an early lunch where I paired it once again with a Dotier. This was in Viscaret Gerendian, I think it was called, on a sunny little terrace overlooking the fields. And, you know, you get these moments. I happen to be sitting by myself. I've often been sitting with other people and just chatting generally. But it was lovely just to chill out, have the beer, let the world go by, say hi to other pilgrims, and just reflect on this early part of the journey. The path continued through, I'd call this a bucolic type landscape on compacted shells and dirt. Fortunately, the pavement had given up, thank God. But I don't recall from my last time doing this trail that we went through so many lovely tracks through forest. Already, we've been treated to some of the prettier places than I remember from last time, to be frank with you. And I enjoyed it. And after the difficulty of the previous day over the Pyrenees, this was a relative respite. But the downhill towards Zubiri still tested my knees, and I know that several other of my compatriots, as it were struggling a little bit with those downhills, and I was pretty grateful to get to the Elberg. That evening, and by the way, the Elberg was a municipal one, which was fine. It worked out that it was about €9, which is obviously a bargain. And I said to them, "Can I use the laundry?" Because I had a laundry set up. And they said, "But €3 for wash and €3 to dry," which I thought was a bargain. So I gave her the money, and I didn't realise that she actually did it all herself. She put it in the washer, she put it in the dryer, she folded it all up and gave it back to me later, which was a result for a municipal albergue, I guess. But the place was clean enough, tidy enough. You always worry about snoring. I bought myself a mouth guard this time to stop my snoring. And so far, I'm now recording this on day 6, I've been told I've been silent at night, which is hard to believe, knowing me as I do, obviously. But I was looking for some way to record, and it was impossible in the albergue because there was noises and banging of doors all the time. So I had to get away, and the woman said to me, "We'll go down by the river." So those of you who heard the first episode, there was a lot of banging and noise and kind of wind noise as well, which is disappointing. But I chose to go down there, and 2 of the Scottish ladies, Alison and Ruth, who I met on day 1, came past and wanted to chat. So I had a little chat with them and then told them I just had to carry on podcasting. So they sat down by the river, and while I would carry on podcasting, I put it out. But that was the end of day number 2. Day 3, Zubiri, 28.6 miles, to Pamplona, 41.2 miles, which is a 12.6 mile day. The options for dinner the previous night in the municipal albergue were, well, pretty minimal. There were none actually in the albergue, but I found another one which I hadn't been able to book into, but this albergue had just one place available for the community dinner, which I totally wanted to do. We had a pretty decent meal actually, and I had one of those moments that, well, I'll tell you, I had 2 French people next to me, and the only other person within talking range was an Italian woman. They were all speaking perfect French and tried to include me in English, but, once again, I was aware how we're usually lucky that everybody speaks English, but on this evening, it was quite humbling to watch them have their own conversation, about which I knew absolutely nothing. In fact, at one stage, I looked up and I saw another English bloke, similarly surrounded by non-English speaking foreigners, and we just smiled at each other and nodded and gave and virtually did a cheers and chinked our glasses from about four spaces away, because we had no idea what was going on. And it is quite humbling to feel that, but that's okay. They're speaking their own language, as they should. I mentioned yesterday recording by the river, and Ruth and Alison had wandered by and sat for a chat. And they told me that Bar Valentine was a good place for breakfast for the following morning, and that it was open from 6 a.m., which is pretty darn helpful to go that early. And the night I went back to bed, obviously, the night was pretty uneventful, and I as I say, I got my laundry done, and my legs did hurt for quite a bit of the night, but I managed to get a sufficient amount of sleep. And once again, nobody said anything about my arms snoring, so happy days for me. So I went to Bar Valentine early for an excellent breakfast. The breakfast was scrambled eggs and bacon. I think, well, you could still see a raw egg in there, so that wasn't as scrambled as it perhaps could have been, but it tasted great. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. And I chatting with a young guy called Ryan, a Canadian, and there were 2 German women joining the table. And I was sitting there ready for the hike, and I was wearing my, had a collared shirt, and I had a fleece, my Patagonia fleece, which looked pretty kind of nice, actually. And one of the German women looked at me, and she was smiling and chatting, and she said to me, "You look very arrogant." And I thought, well, that's not very nice, is it? I must have given my face away. I thought it was a bit strong for her to say that, but because she was still smiling at me and chatting, and kept referring to the Patagonia fleece I was wearing. And when she went to the toilet, her friend said to me, "You looked upset by that." I said, "Well, it didn't seem very nice." She told me I was arrogant, and the German girl laughed, and she said, "She told you that you look very elegant." What an idiot. But, once again, I'm not very good at these languages. The map had looked very flat, yet, as it always is, it was somewhat deceptive. The climbs were relatively short, but they got the heart started pretty early on, and I fell into conversation with Ryan, who was then hiking with a lady called Polly, an Irish guy whose name I still haven't caught on so far. I think it may be Kevin, actually. On this day, the trail seemed to approach villages, then veer right away. It was as if these villagers had decided they didn't want any dirty hobos walking through them. And as I said before, I've been looking forward to a few coffee breaks, but there hardly appeared to be any. But about 6 miles into the hike, one of my memories from the last trip was walking alongside a river, then turning to cross a bridge with a pub or a bar right opposite, with a statue of a hiker. And this was what it was. And it was a great little stop there. I sat for coffee and a sandwich while a couple of flamenco guitarists were doing their stuff. It was very cool, actually. A little while later on, there was a tiny park area where there were stone seats for hikers and a water fountain and a public toilet. And this, which was helpful, obviously, to hikers, and quite a few of us stopped there because this was preceding the steepest climb of the day. It was only about 100 feet in gain, but it was pretty elevated. And later on, you just came across a guy who was selling cokes out the back of his car. I'm not terribly sure whether, I don't know whether they need licenses for that. I don't know, but he was selling coke, so happy days. And I could have done with a coke. But, I didn't want to shortchange him, and it was only €2, but I gave him €5. Because I was quite grateful to have the sugar. I needed, I think I needed a bit of energy. I was starting to flag for the day, and as it was getting warmer. And I was talking with a lady named Serenity, who lived in the UK, and she actually lived at Westward Ho, which I passed through last year on the South West Coast Path. She, as people often do, share their stories when you're walking. And once again, it was another one of those Camino encounters, I guess. Heading out again, the path was always within the sound of the road, but we were guided through trees and a small narrow tracks with 1 or 2 more climbs before descending into a nice flat area. It looked like a nice flat area on the map of 2 or 3 miles into Pamplona. And I was really looking forward to a pleasant, kind of countryside ramble. Well, that wasn't what it was at all. We crossed a bridge and we were straight into what was almost certainly a suburb of Pamplona and headed right through the middle of it. I I wanted to wait for some other hikers. I felt a bit lonely at that stage. It's funny going through a town that you feel you don't want to be in a town at all. I feel I don't want to be in a town at all. So anyway, I sat down at this bar, had a beer, and yet another actually very tasty tortilla. Nobody came past for about 15, 20 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I thought, am I on the right path? Check my map again. I'm using Far Out on this trip, by the way, and it works very well. It keeps me on path. Anyway, I've nearly gone wrong a few times, but Far Out was quite right. The last few miles took me through that suburb to the city, through a really ancient gate. The whole place is surrounded. The old town is surrounded by this huge stone wall. And my albergue was a place called Aloha, and off the trail about 10 minutes, which I hate doing, but I had no real choice. And when I checked in at the Aloha, I had a package. Tina Tempest, if you remember, Chunky, who does the bead by bead necklaces, she'd sent me the very first Camino de Santiago map necklace. What an honour! It was great. I put it on, and immediately I moved the little rubber ring to the note to denote where I was at Pamplona. That evening, I really wanted to go back to a place Emma and I had been to called the Bar Gaucho. It's a tapas bar, although I think they call them pinchos in that area. But we met up. There must have been 10 of us there, and then we had our fill of tapas. And one of the Irish guys said, "There's a better tapas place down the road." So we went there for a nightcap. I say nightcap. I actually had a couple of beers, and I was home or back at the Aloha by 8:30 that night. It was a pretty restless night yet again, but I was now getting ready for day number 4. But that is day number 3. So that was my first 3 days, or 2 in this episode, 2 days. So I'm now 3 days in, and I'm starting to feel stronger. It's amazing. I'm still pretty slow up the hill, but I'm starting to feel better, and I'm going well. So now let's change pace a little bit and catch up with Beth and Andrew as they're heading the way up the Appalachian Trail. Hey Beth, hey Andrew, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, very good.
Great.
Thanks.
So you're back into it, and I can't remember where we last left you, but I think in your notes you say that you were at tent site and you ended up at Clyde Smith Shelter, which I know is just before Rome Mountain, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you came upon a Conrock crew. Tell us about that.
Oh man, they were working so hard. It was amazing. Like we've just seen so much damage, so much blowdown, and the work that these crews have done is just amazing. Fantastic.
And is it the cutting up of the trees, clearing the trees out of the way, and have they cleared everything so far?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have not come across anything we haven't been able to either get around or over. I mean, most of it's been very clear. And these people that we came across, they were, doing steps, and
Oh
gosh, that's
wow!
hard work.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, when you step on those steps, you can feel the weight of them underneath your foot almost, can't you? And you think to yourself, how did
Yeah.
anybody move this into position?
It's crazy. I'm just fascinated by how much they've done. Yeah, we got to say thank you, but for all those crews that don't get a thank you, I hope I hope somebody's thanking them.
Oh, I think everybody does when they see them. It is the work
Yeah.
they do is remarkable. But what's the forest looking like? Is it decimated?
No, it's weird because they're just big parts that, where you'll have blow down, blow down, blow down. A lot of trees and then nothing. I, I
Hmm.
mean, I, I was kind of thinking it would be, you know, there have been big areas like Roan Mountain. There were some long areas that have blowdowns, but otherwise, it's like, I don't know, like 20, 30 yards and then nothing, and then the trees seem fine. So
Wow, amazing.
weird.
And you said there was a detour, and it's about 5.8 mile detour. I wouldn't know where it happened. And did you see into where it was? Did you? Did you know where the detour was?
Yeah, I mean, it was well marked, and that was right after actually we saw that crew,
Right.
and, it was straight up. I don't know before they built steps up there, I do not know how people got up there because it was straight up.
Oh dear. It's just like you just said, very tough. Got our tents up before the rain came, but a cool night.
Yeah,
So you beat the rain, which is always a good thing. So
yeah.
and then it was Clyde Smith Shelter the next day to Yellow Gap, where Over Mountain Shelter used to be. Um, the I'm trying to think back to that because Over Mountain Shelter isn't that the bottom just after Carver Gap? I'm kind
Oh
of
gosh.
I'm kind of lost from it.
I
I
don't
don't
remember. I don't remember.
All right, we
it
won't get
it all kind
geographical
of
then.
blurs together sometimes.
I know that's why you need to keep. Everybody needs to keep a record of exactly what days are like. I've just recorded the last 4 days of my Camino. It's taken me about 2 hours to remember things. So
Oh gosh.
it is what it is.
Yeah. But
And
Road Mountain was beautiful.
yeah,
We loved that. Yeah.
It did that nice same where the trees change into the pine, and so
yes,
there was a bunch of pines laying all over, and even though the destruction was not great, it smelled really good.
I bet it did. I bet it did. Yeah, that's a great mountain to go over. They used to have a shelter there, but unfortunately that's closed now, which is a bit of a drag, unfortunately. So you then go down from Rome Mountain, which is, I think, your highest point. Is it the highest point in the trail? I think it probably is the highest point in the trail. Yeah, no, and second highest
Oh,
point in the trail.
Klingman's.
Cleveland's
Yeah.
is highest, yeah, but it's still pretty high. It's a pretty high mountain as well. And then you go down into it's a
The
little
Balts.
yeah. You get to Carver Gap as the place I was talking about. Then you hit the boards, don't you? So tell people about the balls who've never been up there because it is overwhelming, especially if you've got a decent day.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to be able to, again, like the last ball that we went through or went over. It was really nice to be able to look around and see the scenery, and it was just really pretty. The going up was kind of steep, but then going back down was even worse. So it's like, boy, am I glad we went up this one side over here instead of on this side.
So this is the bit. So this is the bit you enjoyed, though. You enjoyed,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we
yeah,
did. Yeah, we liked it. Yeah.
and it says you're tenting in a perfect in a grassy meadow. So I'm trying to think where that would be. Then that was actually on the
oh, that was
boards.
that was with AZ when we had that great camping site.
Oh, yeah. It was just I mean, it was just a smaller camping site, but it was really nice.
Beautiful. He just had a nice sunset and a nice sunrise and open valley. It was
Yeah, it was that was where that old shelter used to be that looked like a barn.
Yeah, that's the Over Mountain Shelter, isn't it? That's the old
Yeah.
Over Mountain Shelter.
So
Yeah.
it was right by there. I
Oh
mean,
right.
like on the path towards there. And it was just a nice grassy meadow. It was beautiful.
And there's a great view across there. And the reason I know it's a great view across there because that was this is probably shouldn't mention this. Although I think I've mentioned it before, that the shelter had the best privy view on the trail.
Oh yeah,
You could
yeah.
look
It
straight
still
across the meadow.
does. It still does. The
Is it
privy's still there. Yeah, yeah.
marvelous? And then you said we went from the tent site to Station 19E hostel. Is that up and running fully?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a nice hostel. It's kind of rustic as far as the accommodations, but they had great food.
food was really good.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I remember. And you said the Rhone Highlands fabulous. Did you go into town then?
Um,
No, we just spent the night
yeah.
and then we got back on the trail the next morning.
All right, okay. And that was the next one was 16 miles from the hostel to a tent site. I don't remember Jones Falls, which is people are going to be saying, of course you know Jones
Oh,
Falls, but I don't remember it at all.
well, you might have, skipped it because it was a little bit off the trail, but it
Oh,
was
in that case,
really
definitely, yeah. I would have skipped it, absolutely.
it was really beautiful. I mean, we went over there, there was another woman with us and just decided to go off and see it, and it was spectacular.
But I know that you came to Laurel Falls later on, didn't you? Was it Laurel Falls? Yes, you did. We'll talk
Yeah,
about
Laurel
that in
Falls.
a minute. Talk about that one in a minute, though. Um, and it says it was that the river had obviously overflowed in obviously
Oh,
the bad weather and so on, and you saw people's possessions along with the fallen trees on the bank of the river. That must have been quite hard to take, I guess.
it was really, I mean, sad, like
Of course.
shoes and I mean, just toys and I mean, you know, you just know that, how heartbreaking that is for people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we saw.
there's like they're got their whole lives just taken away by the river.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we saw that in Hot Springs as well. It's quite humbling to see actually. And Andrew, you've given Beth a new trail name. Why?
Oh
Why?
yeah.
Why is she Stepmeister?
Well, so a friend of ours, Lois, she would always call her Bethmeister, and and she said that she wanted a new Appalachian Trail name.
Ah,
So, and then she's like, she always counts her steps as she's going up the mountains.
mhm.
Yeah, I count to 100 and then I count 100 and I count to 100 and I count to 100.
Oh God,
And since she's my stepmom, so then she's the Meister of Steps, the Stepmeister.
there you go. Perfect name for you, Beth. Have you taken that one and embraced it now?
Yeah, yeah. So Andrew spent a whole day talking about trying to give me trail names with that had step in it. And so this was the best.
You got it. You got it. And you now owe Andrew 4 dinners, I understand. Is that right?
Four of them. I got two. I got two banked. You got two banked, and I'm just waiting to cash those things in.
Because you had full number 4. Have you had any bad ones yet, Beth?
No, they're stupid ones. They're just trips, like uh, they're preventable if I would just pay attention.
And then 2 days ago, I think it must have been, or it was, yes, it's before you went into Boots Off. You were tentside camping, a misty day, and so on, and you went to Laurel Falls. Oh, and Trail
Yeah,
Magic. Oh, hang on, I've just seen Trail Magic as well. You get Trail Magic
yeah.
further north than I think I got it.
Yeah, Riff Raff was right by Laurel Falls, kind of. And gosh, they had grilled cheese sandwiches
Oh,
and hot dogs and soup. It was great.
that's awesome. Did you now Laurel Falls? What's the date now? It's May. Yeah, that would be a good time. Did you go swimming at Laurel Falls?
New.
I did.
It looked like a good. I wanted to go swimming. I looked at it. I said, I want to go swimming in this thing. That'd be great.
Andrew, let me say something to you. You should take on board when Beth and I were hiking on the TSX challenge, which, by the way, I'm wearing that shirt right now, Beth. When we were there's a girl called Dara, and we came to this
Mhm.
sort of waterfall down a rock slide, effectively into water, and and someone was going to do it, and Dara said to me, "You're going to go?" I said, "Yeah, I don't think I will." I don't know why I said that, but she said, "What, you can do it next time?" And as soon as she said that, that has changed my attitude to things. If something's there and you want to go in the water, go in the bloody water. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Why wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
you're right. You got me. You
Yep.
got me.
Well, next time, go in
The
the
next opportunity.
go in the water. Quite right too.
Yeah, I definitely will.
And then Beth, you ended that text by saying it was probably your favourite day so far, though you keep thinking you're having the same thought about
I
that.
know. It was beautiful. We had rock walls on both sides right before the falls, and it was just the whole day was just it was beautiful weather, it was beautiful scenery. It was just gosh, some days you just get overwhelmed by the beauty of it.
I totally agree, and it's great to take the time to recognise that as well. And then you just had 3 miles. You said into Boots Off, and have you left Boots Off now?
Yeah, we left this morning,
Oh
so
right.
we're slack packing.
Oh, you
So they brought
slackers.
us, yeah, I know. We're
Nice.
slack packing 21 miles
Oh,
back to Boots Off.
oh my God, that's a lot. So
That's a lot.
tell everybody about Boots Off, and if did they get much damage in the storm?
I don't think that they got much damage. I know that because they're kind of higher up on the hill,
Yeah.
but the lower part leading up to it, I think got quite a bit of damage. But
Right.
they were lucky enough to be higher up on the hill.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
look, I'm
So
glad.
the people there
Sorry.
are wonderful. I mean,
Oh
they're
yeah.
just so accommodating, and breakfast was good this morning. So I had cereal. I haven't had cereal in probably years. That was good.
I'm wondering if you're slacking 21 miles back, where have they dropped you off?
It was like at a highway.
19. I
I-
remember 19 was a number. I don't know.
yeah. the
Blimey.
US 19 or something like that. And then we'll slack pack tomorrow to Damascus. So we
Oh,
can hit
excellent.
Damascus in 2 days.
That's
Yeah.
lovely. That's lovely. Oh, you're gonna love it there. You're gonna love it there. Well, look, you're in a great part of the trail right now, so I'm glad you're enjoying it. And great that we're able to catch up and record in Spain while you're walking up the Appalachian Trail. Still blows my mind, I tell you. And it
It
sounds
is
much
crazy.
better. You sound much better all the way over there than I do on my own bloody phone. I can't understand why it works this way. All right, guys. Well, stay well and stay safe and enjoy the rest of the day. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers then. Bye. Don't go.
Don't go.
So it's all going well for them still, which is great, obviously. And I love the fact that Beth said that she gets these feelings, this is best day ever, quite often now. And it kind of goes that way all the way to the end. How wonderful. So let's pick up again with my Camino and days number 4 and number 5. Day 4, Pamplona, 41.2 miles, to Puente la Reina, 55.5, which is 14.3 mile day. Now, I know I didn't need to, but I always do this, but I retraced my steps to where I'd left the Camino and resumed my walk. I could almost see the road from my hotel. It was about 100 yards away, which would have been the Camino, but I just can't resist it. And because I would have missed out about half a mile of the Camino, and I just kind of don't want to do that. And I want to complete the whole thing, obviously. But even though I could have gone the shorter way, I didn't. I was kind of in a hurry because I knew that the rain, and they were predicting pretty bad rain, somewhere around noon, maybe 2:30 or 3 o'clock. But I should have got going earlier, but once again, I'd never got out to 8:15 a.m. I still don't know what I do in the morning, to be honest with you. And I was hiking along. I'm feeling pretty good about myself through Pamplona and very comfortable. And I saw 2 people I met previously. There was a bloke called Nick, who turned out to be my age, and I think I look fairly young for 72. He was 72 as well. He's got all black hair. He says he doesn't dye it. Anyway, he was hiking with his daughter, Orla, O-R-L-A, what a great name, from New Zealand. I saw them in there, so I popped my head into the cafe and said, morning, and left before Orla chased after me and said, you must try this pastry. and so she said, it is the most tasty thing you'll ever have. So I went back into the pastry shop, had a cup of coffee, 2 pastries, not surprisingly, I suppose. And of course, that slowed me down once more. The path out of Pamplona was very carefully marked with metal plates on the pavement with the Camino insignia. Very helpful, actually. And it made for a very pleasant walk alongside the park with views, as we were now outside the medieval wall, so we could take pictures back to the wall. And it was in mid-40s, so great weather for walking. And there were plenty of people actually milling around outside. I suppose it would be in a big city, but there were simply lots of parks around, and it's a lovely place, and it's a university town as well. And heading downhill outside, the lawns were beautifully tended on either side, and the university buildings, and tons of students going back and forth. You know, college towns are the same the world over, I guess. They have a vibrancy about them which other places just don't have. I just love college towns. And the first village we came to, I sat and had a coffee with a young woman from Colorado called Sarah, and it was exactly the same spot I stopped at 7 years ago and had a coffee with a Dutch guy. I can't remember his name, actually. Emma and I had a coffee with him. The path was easier than I recalled, though I knew that our steepest climb was still ahead. And I was expecting, and I came to, a very pretty little village called Zeriquiki, probably pronounced that terribly wrong. And it was there that we had a lovely experience the previous time we were there, Emma and I bought my Camino shell there. For some reason, I seem to remember the passport office back in Saint Jean was selling us the Camino shells 7 years ago, but I didn't see any on sale for this time, so I was actually hiking without a shell. But I bought my Camino shell there and attached it to my back. And of course, I had a beer and a sandwich from the little shop there. And I sat in exactly the same spot again, leaning up against the wall and looking at the church that I had 7 years previously with Emma. People were strewn around, sitting on the ground, just having conversations. I chatted with a nice old fella called Michael from Ireland. For the first time, those hills still quite slow, especially on the uphills. My legs were responding well to the climbs, and I set out for the last mile or two because we were going up the Alto de Perdon, I think it's called. I don't even know what it stands for, but that's those. You've seen lots of pictures of it, I'm sure, of the hiking statues, and that's at the top of this hill. And so I kept on with the climb, getting up towards there, thinking, oh God, I hope this ends soon. And suddenly it did. I was there at the top. I came upon it all actually quite unexpectedly. There were plenty of people milling about at the top, so I took the obligatory pictures and got a picture of myself by one of the statues and headed down the quite rocky path actually. And I started using those skills of using pole placement, and I got down there really fast, passing a lot of people along the way. I mean, I wasn't really hurrying, although I did want to beat the rain. But I actually slowed myself down a little bit because I didn't want to fall, but I felt that, I don't know, I was home. I knew exactly what I was doing. I'm sure all of you get that from time to time when you go out on a trail and you kind of know where you are, you know what's working, you know what happens. And I just got it at that moment going down. As I say, I must have passed, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 people. I felt so confident going down there. But I was still, as I say, always concentrating on the boulders on the way down, because, you know, any moment you could go over and I'll be shouting out number one, you know. But I didn't have to. And I became aware that our surroundings had shifted. There were green, lush fields all around, and the scene was very countryside, very beautiful. Came to a little village with another famous Camino bronze statue, giving me another picture as I passed through the middle of it. I also came to, and I'd forgotten this on the first trip, the first gastropub of the trip. And I remembered it as soon as I saw it, actually. Emma and I sat there for about an hour last time, and I even interviewed one or two hikers for the podcast. This time I was sitting down at my table with my beer and very exotic cheeseburger with foie gras in it, which was pretty damn cool. And two American women from Houston sat at my table. Actually, it may not be in Houston. There's two other American women. One of the women, Amy, was an orthodontist, and she was just talking to me about several mission trips she's been on to repair and help repair cleft palates in South America. And she was raising funds for the mission, and her story really touched me. So I remember from my youth, you know, we saw pictures of kids with cleft palates, and it was just an unimaginable disfigurement. And anyway, I contributed $25. She was grateful for that, which is kind of nice. And this stop would rather slow me down. We were there chatting for ages, actually. And as soon as I left the pub, I was ready for it to be over. Though I can still enjoy the rest of the walk into Puente La Reina and started to look for a place to lay my head for the night. I'd been aware that a lot of places weren't available. You know, they were full up already, and I tried the municipal one, which I stayed at last time. And I was sitting at a bar. Actually, I think I just had a Coca-Cola. Yeah, I had a Coca-Cola and got on their website. I got on their Wi-Fi in the bar so I could try to get myself somewhere to stay. And I had to stay at a hotel, which I wasn't intending to, the Hotel Jacques, J-A-K-U-E, or Jacques. It was more than I intended to spend for the night, but when I read that they had a bath and the lure of my own space, I thought it was too much to resist. I was going to have a bath when I got there. I got there, and of course, bloody water was lukewarm at best, so I couldn't have a bath. I had a tepid shower, which was a bit of a drag, but there was a restaurant in the hotel, so I spent dinner chatting with an Aussie husband and wife, and we shared stories, which was it's always interesting talking to these people you've never met before, you'll probably never meet again. But I then played word games on the New York Times app and left. I was the last person to leave the restaurant and went to bed once again at the incredibly late hour of about 9 o'clock. But that was the end. of, I can't even remember what day it was, day number 4. Day 5, Punta La Arena, 55.5 miles, to Ayagui, 70.5 miles, a 15-mile day. I left the hotel at 8:15 a.m, having got up for breakfast just after 6 a.m. I literally have no idea where the time goes. I don't know, am I in a time warp or something? It was the same on the Appalachian Trail. I'd get up at, 5:30, wouldn't get out till 8 o'clock. I just do not know what happens to me. Anyway, the hotel was actually just back from the town the previous evening, so I had to walk back into the town of Punta La Arena. And it was nice to actually go through it, because I remember it from last time. I'd stayed at the albergue and passed the one that albergue wouldn't take me in last night. I remember last time I left my shoes at the that albergue, and I had to run back after about, 5 minutes down the road, realising my shoes were still there because I was wearing my sandals at the time. Stupid. So it's a small town, and to leave it, you actually cross this glorious old bridge. These bridges, I don't know the names of them. I should really know more about them and how old they are, but they look really damn old. And then we were straight onto a compacted gravel road. It was within about 100 yards of the main road and gave us an early, easy walk. These roads aren't even that busy, to be fair, but so, we're not inundated with traffic noise, although I do prefer it when they lead us further out into the countryside. We'd been promised some serious thunderstorms from midday to 5 o'clock in the evening, but also there was going to be some rain from 7 a.m. And as I say, I was out at 8:15, so I missed that as well. But nothing really bad was happening. It was spitting a little bit, and that gradually increased until I decided I'm going to put on my poncho. It's actually, I've got a rain jacket, and it's a really good rain jacket, but the poncho was thrown into my bag at the last minute by Emma when I stayed with her just before I came away there. She said, "You never know when you're going to need that," and she was absolutely right. And of course, as soon as I put my poncho on, naturally enough, it stopped spitting. So I stripped off both my poncho and my rain jacket, and then of course the sun came out. A long, well, it seemed long at the time, a lung-busting 500-foot climb was next on the list. But I coped with it really well. I now know what I need to do is to slow down, shorten my steps, and perhaps lean back a little bit, letting my pack pull me back almost and bring me more upright. I seem to walk better that way, but my legs truly are kicking into gear. Now my feet are another issue. I think I'm 258, 260 pound man. I've got a 15 pound pack on my back. I'm banging down on my feet all the time, quite heavily, and my feet feel a bit beaten from the bottom, but my legs are just really great again. I'm really happy about that. We then went to a village called Maneru, Maneru, in which I saw literally not one person who was an inhabitant of the village. Everybody I saw was a pilgrim. There was no one out. There was nothing open. So we went through that pretty quickly. The trail kept us fairly close to the road for much of the rest of the day. Still mainly on compacted gravel, and it was easy walking, not like the rocks coming down from Alto de Pedron a couple of days before. Then we came to Lorca, and I seem to remember it was a beautiful, romantic-looking town, high on a hill, which is bad news, of course, because it means another lung-busting climb to get there. Pretty village, though, and on the way, somebody has set up a little donativo. There was nobody there, but there was food there for people, with the flies landing on all the food, so I'm not sure that's a great idea. But people were helping themselves to some of the stuff and leaving some coins there. But nobody was manning it at all. Got into the village, got straight out again. And soon after, as we approached another town, the skies rapidly darkened. It was a bit like the mothership in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It just suddenly descended upon us, and the howl belted down, absolutely belted down. And as we were climbing a hill into the village, I can't remember what it's called now, we were climbing this hill into the village, the rain was gushing out of the village. It got very, very wet, very, very quickly. My feet actually got soaked. And for the rest of the day, we were mainly in medium to heavy rain. And I took an opportunity whenever I could to get out of the rain and grab a coffee. I'd go into this place and say, everybody wet enough yet? And hopefully people would laugh. And yeah, we're all sitting there dripping away, and they're very nice, the people in Spain. They welcome you in, they mop up the floor after you because you're just sitting there dripping all the time. And it was a tough day. I'd actually been unable to book anywhere in Estrella itself, but I managed to find a municipal albergue about a mile beyond Estrella, which did involve an uphill climb, which was a bit of a drag. And that was in Ayagui. So I went for it. It was clean, it had laundry, had food, had coffee, and beer. How bad can it be? And I spent the evening with two roommates, Aussie roommates, chatting about life in general. And yeah, it was a good evening. And once again in the morning, I hadn't snored. Happy days. But that is the end of day number 5. So that's it for another week. I'll be back again on Thursday with days 6, 7 and 8 of my Camino and catch up with Dave. I'm really enjoying this. I loved my hike with Emma. I know I referred to it a few times. I've noticed that while I was recording, but it was a good decision to go by myself. I've got a lot to think about, things that have happened over the last few years, and I'm really enjoying, relishing that time really, of spending time by myself on the trail, normally by myself. I love it when there's 100 yards in front of me there's somebody and 100 yards behind me there's somebody. That's a pretty cool thing. But I'm also loving the whole community aspect of it again. I think I only really got into the idea of community once I went on my second Appalachian Trail hike. And it's so important on this trip. And I think those who don't engage with the community really are missing out on something. It's a special part. But as I say, that's it. And I'll see you again on Thursday morning. So I can't see you next week, but I'll see you next Thursday. Cheers.